can't do it with 3 devices recording. It's just not meant to be.
Right.
But here we are in our brand spanking new mobile recording studio.
I got a new car.
I got a new whip.
I'm so excited.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's clean. There's no dog hair like in my car. There's no... Both of us are notorious for having a passenger floor filled with...
Fast food is
garbage.
mine. Yeah, garbage.
Yeah, water bottle, like...
Straw wrappers.
All fine stuff. And then, of course, my kids are like, that wasn't me.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, probably was. Or me. I mean, I'm notorious, too, for just chucking something over there from the driver's seat. So, but this is lovely. Lovely. Yeah. And I'm proud of you and happy for you that you got it. Peace of mind. New car. No worries.
It is an electric car, though, so I don't know what it will be like. I hear about the battery anxiety. Because if you're running low on batteries, it stresses some people out. But we will learn about that and I'll try to watch it and try to be careful.
Yeah, you'll just plan your trips, your errand running and your other trips wisely, and you'll be all right.
Hey.
You'll be all right.
All right, what's haunting you?
I was in Friday Harbor, Washington, for a couple of days on a little family, barely a vacation.
Yeah.
Not a staycation.
Not far from us, but
pretty close. It's 2 hours and 18 minutes just to the ferry, and an hour ferry ride from there, from Anacortes to Friday Harbor. So it's a bit of a trek, but it was worth it. And of course, there are several alleged haunted locations in Friday Harbor, because I learned that it is one of the few port towns in the country that never went up in flames. So there are still buildings there, original to
really
the town,
old.
literally 1800, that kind of thing.
Wow.
So I did some quick, this is allegedly haunted. This is, that is. But I'm the only one in my family that's really interested in all that. So I need to go back someday and just go intentionally to those places. But then the first night, we're staying the night in this Airbnb, and outside there are 2 doors to the bedroom that I was in. And out one of the doors was the stairwell door that led directly outside, down a steep stairwell. And the light in that stairwell would come on, and then it would go off. Then it would come on.
Creepy.
And then it would go off.
Yeah.
And my husband got up once and went to the restroom and came back, and I was like, honey, the light in the stairwell. He's like, I know, I see it. I said, it's freaking me out. Will you please just go check to be sure we locked the back door? So he did. Yep, it's locked. Checks the light switch, goes on, it goes off. He gets back into bed. Sucker comes right back on. So I just said, forget it, close the door. I'm not interested. It clearly is haunted without a shadow of a doubt. So let's just close the door. And they're like, well, it could be a motion detector light. I'm like, okay, what is the motioning? What's motioning to set it off? And maybe it's car lights. The window is on the second floor, and the motion detector's at the bottom of the stairs, nowhere near. Anyway, I didn't do a lot of scientific research. I just went with, it's haunted. The next morning I went
Close the door.
Yep. The next morning I went out and had a little talk out there. Just said, hey, if there's someone out here, I saw the light trick last night. Neat trick.
Yeah.
But how about we don't do that at night, because it freaks me out.
We're going to talk about that in my story today. That's going to come up.
Of course we are,
today.
because that's how we roll, is making those connections with each other. So I just love haunted stuff. Just the thought that something spooky is going on, unexplained. I just love it.
Okay, well, good. We're doing
what's
a haunted
haunting
house
you?
story today. Oh, what's haunting me?
What's haunting you first?
Oh, I am going to tell you that this has been haunting me. This is going to date this episode. So, at this point in time in New Jersey for the last month, people have been seeing drones, and they've been seeing more than drones. They've been seeing normal planes too, but they've also been seeing weird just orbs and unexplained, just a lot of UFOs, UAPs, but also drones that appear to be man-made.
They're the sizes of cars.
They're the sizes of cars, large cars, SUV, and they're seeing them everywhere. And on
Saturday Night Live, Tina Fey took credit for it.
She did.
She said, and all those drones you see, that's me.
That's so funny. I am really fascinated by it, though. So I've been trying to research. I say research with my finger quotes, because people have a lot of theories on what they could be, that they're man-made and run by our government. But our government has been having televised meetings about this, where they're like, they're not ours. We don't know what they are.
It doesn't make sense. We're just going to let's say, theoretically, it's China and Russia and North Korea and who else might be wanting to get some intel. First of all, Jersey?
Right. What's over in Jersey?
What's so fascinating? But I'm also thrilled to know, as a Washingtonian, that they're interested more in the Eastern Seaboard. Fine, start there. I got some time to run.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I think there's no way that the American government is like, we don't know what they are. We're just going to let that ride.
Because that's more terrifying to me than anything. So if the government knows what they are and they need to keep it secret, I mean, I'm assuming they know what they are because we have great intelligence, right? We must. If they truly don't know,
then how would they be so laissez-faire about it if they don't know? That doesn't make any sense.
No,
to
none
me.
of it
They're
makes
just
sense.
lying to us.
So and they're not even trying to hide that. I don't feel like it's just so I have so many questions. But I asked my brother-in-law because he lives in New Jersey.
Oh.
And I wanted to know. So over Christmas, I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on with these drones? And he says, I don't know. I think a lot of them are mistaken planes, but a lot of them are actually these weird things. And he's like, I've got friends who've got videos and they go out at night, and everybody in Jersey is just like going out at night to see what they can see. And they're catching a lot of videos. Mm-hmm. And it's still like everybody's talking about it. It's the buzz and nobody knows what it is.
But what can you do, right? So you're on the ground. But I guess I heard when it first started ramping up in New Jersey that the governor of New Jersey was like, well, then if they're not going to tell me in Washington what the deal is, I'm going to start shooting them down. Yeah. As a homeowner, just as an average citizen at this point, I sort of feel like one of those is coming down. If no one else is doing this for me and they don't want to tell us what it is, I'm not going to have it just roaming over my property where my children are in my home and not get some answers. So either tell me or that sucker's coming out of the sky.
Yeah. And someone must be doing that. I don't know. But the government put out a statement, if you find when the one comes down and you find it, stay away from it. Yeah. So why would they say that? I don't
stay away from it. Well, that's the surest way to get people to go toward it. I mean,
well, I hope we learn more, but it's been a whole month of just wondering, and
it's not just in Jersey, like, isn't it? There's other places around the world. They've seen other places
around the world. In Europe, they've seen them.
I think I saw one in Japan. That was on Reels or something. And so many things are faked, right? So many things are AI generated now. I take everything with a huge grain of salt, but because there are so many that the news has, news agencies have got the government officials recognizing, yep, we know this is happening. Don't worry about it.
Look the other way.
Yeah. That's so bizarre. Come on, Jersey. Fight back. You don't, then it's going to just move westward, and I guess...
We don't need it. We don't want it.
No, but thank God Texas is between us and them. So
right.
I trust Texas.
By the time it gets to Texas, they've got it.
Texas ain't playing. They like their guns. Something's coming out of the sky.
All right, you ready for a story?
I am.
So last week, you said that you had never heard of the story of the Sallie House, which is one of the most famous American
I do not think I've ever heard of it.
That's crazy to me because it's really actually really popular American haunted house.
I know, you keep telling me this and I'm feeling lesser and lesser every time you tell
me.
No, I'm just kidding. It's so popular. I can't believe you don't know. And on Wednesdays we wear pink.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story about it so that you know about it.
Giddy up.
What
do you need to get that? It's your family is texting you. Should we take a pause?
Yeah, let's see what it is.
Okay.
Well, you're about to learn about the Sallie House, and then I won't be able to make you feel bad anymore. The Sallie House is home to hundreds of tourists every year to come experience the paranormal because it's pretty reliably things happen there.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And if you are on YouTube, and I'll link all this on our socials, but there's lots of videos of weird things happening. There's lots of EVPs. There's lots of personal stories. I mean, it's like one of those hot spots. Yeah.
I don't even know where it is.
Well, it's in Atchison, Kansas.
Oh, Kansas. Okay.
We're going to Kansas.
Okay.
Atchison, Kansas, which is a little trivia about Atchison. It's the birthplace of Amelia Earhart.
No way.
Yeah. She was born there in 1897, and the home she grew up in has been turned into a museum.
Amelia Earhart.
I know. She's super famous.
Yeah. Mysterious end as well.
Yeah, true. And then it's also the home to Benedictine College, which is a college founded by monks, Catholic monks, and they still live on the campus and own the college. And they're like famous because they've recorded albums of Gregorian chants and
really, that's in Kansas.
Yeah,
fascinating.
I know.
Okay,
and they also are famous for brewing beer.
Did not know that either. Isn't there a military base there? Did you see?
I didn't see that when I looked.
I feel like my grandfather was in Kansas for a time with the military at some point, but I could be totally wrong.
I don't know. I only know Kansas really from The Wizard of Oz. That's all I know about you, Kansas. If anyone from Kansas is listening.
Lots of rainbows and tornadoes, often on the same day. That's all I know.
Yeah. It's probably really green and pretty. It's by Missouri. It's on the Missouri River, isn't it?
I think it's pretty flat.
Oh.
That has its own kind of charm, but for me, I love a geographically diverse landscape.
Yeah, which we're so lucky to have in Washington because it's just all hills and trees and.
Mm-hmm. But we have our grassy plains and our river deltas and things like that too. But I think Kansas is pretty flat.
Okay.
Midwest.
Well, the house was built in the mid-1800s, and it was commissioned by a doctor who had plenty of money to commission a house.
Okay.
Dr. Charles Finney. And it was built on 508 North 2nd Street. But it's really interesting because the house was originally built on 1st Street, but 1st Street had a horrible flood. And so everyone who lived on 1st Street flipped their house, and they made their back door the front door. And now all of those houses have a 2nd Street address.
Like physically moved it, or they just said...
They just
made it look like, okay, now this is going to be our back door, and that'll be our
Yeah,
front door.
I mean, some of them might have done some construction to make it look... I don't know what was in the back of the house at the time.
Interesting. They moved a porch or
maybe
whatever.
They moved a porch, or maybe they shifted living room, kitchen. I don't know how they did
That's
it.
so, just industrious.
I know.
Like, we're not going to move. Let's just pretend that this is the back now.
The whole block. We're just flipping the house. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is very sensical. That makes great economic sense, and it's far less stressful.
Yeah. So Dr. Charles Finney practiced medicine out of that house, and he used the bottom floor for surgery and a bedroom as an office downstairs. And then his family, the Finney family, lived upstairs in the house. And it's a small house, though. It's not... It's cute. It's a quaint little...
2-story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Old, so it doesn't have a garage or anything.
What was he doing in that basement?
Yeah. So supposedly, the Sallie House is named after a young girl named Sallie who died in the house under Dr. Finney's care. And it's a horrible story. She came to Dr. Finney with really bad abdominal pain. He thought it was an appendix that was going to rupture, and so he gave her anesthesia. I don't know what anesthesia they had in 1850.
Besides,
1800s.
Here's a shot of whiskey and chew on this leather belt.
Right, that's what I don't know.
Put a bullet between your teeth and grin and bear it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they did have things, but I mean, they even had things before that, as far as for disinfectant anesthesia, but nothing super reliable, nothing like general anesthesia today.
Yeah, and that might have been part of the problem because the anesthesia had not kicked in when he made the first incision. And she was screaming from the pain and the trauma, and they couldn't get it under control, and she ended up bleeding out.
Oh my!
So it was a horrible,
so
tragic
they never
story.
even helped her get the original problem. They just created a whole other set of problems.
Yeah.
Oh, baby girl.
I know. It's really sad. There's not a lot of evidence of that story, though, but that's the story that's kind of been passed along through the town.
Okay.
And it's the reason why they call it the Sallie House, because a lot of the things that happen there could maybe be coming from a childlike spirit. And so they've named the house
They've attributed
after her.
it to her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But there is a rumor, since they don't have a lot of evidence, that somewhere down the line the mayor made up that story as a publicity stunt to attract more visitors, like tourists.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean,
they just weren't getting enough tourists from Amelia Earhart, so they were like, let's throw a ghost in the mix.
He was ahead of his time.
I can't think of any other made up stories for towns that were made up to bring in tourists. Can you?
I think there are stories that get exaggerated a lot and there are, people now with Airbnbs, VRBOs and stuff that will strategically market to people like you and I who, interested in ghost hunting stuff, and so they'll say, this is haunted, that's haunted, and maybe there's some truth to it, but oftentimes I think it's, at worst, it's like blown out of proportion.
Yeah.
And maybe at worst it's like made up completely.
Yeah.
And then some are totally legit. Some are totally haunted and nobody wants to say anything. Nobody tells you. They don't want that kind of publicity, so they don't tell you. And then people go stay there and they're like, we're going to check out in the middle of the night because this is too much.
Yeah. I was in a hotel room once where we almost checked out in the middle of the night because weird things were happening.
Really? Oh, I need to know more about that. Where were you?
It was in Vegas, which has all kinds of old creepy hotels.
Whoa.
Yeah, like in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't in Vegas, sorry, it was in Nevada. So it was on one of my many road trips, and I was in there with my girls, and weird things were happening.
It wasn't the Clown Motel, was it?
It wasn't the Clown Motel, but it was
like...
old like that. And it was just the stuff like lights going on and off, flickering on and off. But I unplugged the light and it was still flickering.
What?
Yeah, the phone was ringing. I don't know how any of this, like, nothing else scary happened, but I was at the point where I was like, do I leave?
Right. Because
I had 2 little kids with me.
And you're not getting good sleep.
Yeah. The phone would ring and you'd pick it up and nobody would be on the other end.
Come on.
It was all like electronic stuff. It was like electronic weirdness. Okay, where were we? So the Dr. Finney's family owned the house and they kept passing it down through their family members.
Okay, cool.
And plenty of family members did end up passing away in the house over time, just from natural causes and things. But so there have been deaths in that house, just like any old house, right? Odds are. Yeah.
The way that life works is that there's also death.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything over 100 years old, you're gonna have at least a couple.
Yeah, and I just mentioned that because like there's been so much activity in this house that recorded that psychics have been through and ghost hunters and like they do their Ouija boards, their channeling or whatever, and they'll pick up on ghosts other than Sallie, and then they attribute it to it was the Finney family or it was someone right next door or something like that.
Sure.
Okay. So lots of people have lived in this house after the Finney family kind of went through it. Now we're getting more into like the 1900s and more modern times, and it's been rentals, and a lot of people who had rented or owned the house report weird things happening. Like starting to get a reputation for being haunted, but I don't think there was anything super serious.
Okay.
Couldn't find any super serious stories until we get to the 90s, which is where really serious stuff started to happen. But just know that the house has a history of people who would like live there for a bit. Yeah, weird things happen. They'd move out. They didn't stay super long. One woman even was a tenant before this family in the 90s that I'm about to tell you about, and she had drawn a pentagram in the basement that they found. So she was doing something. She was dabbling in something. She was aware of the history of the house. She was some kind of dabbler. We don't have a lot of information about her, but other than finding the pentagram that she had put in.
And that potentially could have ramped things up. Some people believe that that's a way to invite spiritual.
But some people think it's a form of protection.
Yeah, I think it's all. Well, I mean, I believe everything is about intent.
Yeah.
So whatever your intent is going to be the crux of what you receive in most cases. So if you go into it with a negative intent, you're going to reap a negative harvest, right? Get what you sow. So hopefully it was for protection.
Hopefully.
And she wasn't just opening a gateway and
hopefully
turning it into Grand Central Station of spiritual activity.
Yeah, we don't know much about it, but we just know that it's down there in the basement. And the basement's weird looking too, because there's stairs that go down to it, but then it's like a dirt floor, and the pipes are like halfway up your like waist level, so it's not a usable basement.
No, that's a crawl space.
It's a glorified large crawl space. Yeah, that's what it's like. But people, like modern ghost hunters and things who go there, they have a lot of experiences down in the basement. So, I don't know. It looked to me like what is it called when you just put your food down in a cold space under the house? What is that called?
Oh, like a root cellar?
A root cellar. Looks like a root cellar to me.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Okay. My computer went dark. So I'm going to now tell you about the most famous family that lived there.
Okay.
In 1992, a family moves into the home. It's a husband and wife, and she's pregnant. Their names are Tony and Debbie Pickman.
Okay.
They look like very nice, normal people. They're blonde.
That's the first clue that something's up.
The blondes.
Can't trust them.
I'm blonde. So this is...
I've been blonde once or twice. Definitely not naturally. So that's funny. Okay, the Pickmans.
The Pickmans. And the Pickmans, this is interesting. So Debbie Pickman, she reminds me of us because she's written books after this experience. She's been on interviews, things like that. But she says she's always kind of been interested in the paranormal and weird stuff. Okay. It's like us.
Cool.
Yeah, but Tony is not. He thinks it's all creepy, spiritual kind of stuff, and he was not interested in any of it. But Debbie was more like, ooh, I've heard there's ghosts in this house. I can't wait to see what happens.
Oh, okay. Good for her.
Yeah.
Way to go into it with an adventurous spirit, Debbie.
Yeah. The first month passes, and Debbie's probably disappointed because there's no activity. But after a month, the little things start to happen, like the little haunted house things, like lights dimming, like we were talking about, weird things, like their dog, I think, wouldn't want to go into one of the rooms. Just like
trust the animals. Yeah. Always trust the animals.
It just starts to get a little bit strange. They start to notice cold spots. It's like ramping up. This is the point where Debbie's like, oh, I finally got what I was hoping for. She probably hoped it stopped there.
She forgot to hit pause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they also call the Sallie House, I forgot to tell you this, they call Sallie the man-hating ghost because most of the horrible things that happen are to men. The theory is that
because the doctor
doctor hurt her so bad.
She was just a kid though, right?
Yeah. I don't know how old. But we're going to get into scratching and burns and bruises and things like that. And those are all happening to men who come. Yeah.
That's weird.
It is weird. So it's not...
I wouldn't think a child spirit who died a tragic medical death would be burning and scratching people. That seems weird, but go on.
It's all weird to me. Yeah, okay. It's all weird to me. When their baby was born, the activity picked up even more, and they started to notice things like molds growing on household items for no reason at all. Just like something would get mold on it. Terrible smells like sulfur, and things would light on fire.
No,
like they would have little. That's
terrifying.
Yeah, I wouldn't stay in a house where like little fires. Just
not with a brand new baby.
With a brand new baby, and all of a sudden something catches fire in the closet or.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. I would never sleep again.
I don't know why they stayed.
You do. You just do. It's weird. Like I've been in similar situations, and you just think we're going to solve this. There's a logical explanation for this. We're going to get to the bottom of it. There's some stubbornness attached, but it's also like we can't see any threat. So there's got to be we have to be bigger and stronger than it. So we'll just outwit it, outlast it. Whatever.
Yeah. Or you're probably always rationalizing it, I guess.
Absolutely.
Being like, well, there's no way a ghost just lit a doll on fire. It must have...
There's something else,
some electricity in the air.
And just picking up and moving is not easy.
Yeah.
Especially with a new baby.
Right.
So, I think most people they overstay something that's a threat most of the time.
So in a morning in October, Tony Pickman goes to the kitchen to pour himself a glass of milk. And he was startled because he saw a young girl in a white dress. He dropped his glass.
You bet he did.
Yeah, and it shattered, and he ran to get Deborah. And he said to Deborah, I was curious about how people describe when they see what they call ghosts or something weird.
Yeah.
This is how he described it to Deborah. He said, Sallie looked as real as you and I, innocent and sweet. She had a surprised look on her face, as if she was just curious. Like he surprised her as much as she surprised him.
That he could see her.
Yeah, he said she wasn't scary looking at all. And he saw her like I see you, like full color, full bodied.
That's why I think like we probably all see ghosts all the time, but we don't know because they just look like normal people.
That's wild. I never really thought of that.
I don't think it's like the whole sheet ghost thing, that didn't start, or like the whole Victorian, why do they always look Victorian? Why are they always wearing like the woman in white and the high collared and this? They don't. That's just become a stereotype since like Dickens Christmas Carol or something. I don't know. The scary ghost story. Remember the Christmas song, right? Scary ghost stories and tales of the glory of Christmases long, long ago.
Yeah.
Like that's always been like, we used to do ghost stories at Christmas time? Tell me more about that. So I've done some research on that, but it was kind of, it was a very British thing to tell ghost stories at Christmas time. The Americans' puritanical belief systems sort of abandoned that, but because of the Victorian era of telling ghost stories, it became like an American thing that all ghosts are Victorian ghosts. So we started depicting them as, and that just became part of our lore. It's almost always looks like a Victorian child or a Victorian lady in waiting or whatever. But the reality is, I don't think there was anything magical or spiritual just about the Victorian era. That they would be the only generation of ghosts. I think that it's probably a lot more common to see them.
That's wild. That's wild. I'm sorry, I'm pausing because I'm remembering an experience I had when I was about 16. I was just walking through our house. I was alone. I was walking through our house, and we had a big window that looked out over onto the main street from the living room. I'm walking from one end of the house to the other, passing by that window, and I see a woman in a white dress standing at the end of our driveway, just standing there, like looking right into the house. I felt like she was looking right at me. It didn't register to me how weird that was until I had passed the whole window, right? And then I back up, which is like 2-3 steps back. She's gone. She was gone. There was no way for her to... I mean, she wasn't like close to bushes or trees or a car or anything, because she was in the middle of the street, middle of our driveway.
I remember that house. Yeah,
it was a weird thing that happened. I was really spooked that night. I called my parents. I don't know where they were. I was like, "You gotta come home." I was really spooked. Oh, yeah. But she didn't. I mean, she didn't seem scary when I.
Just the fact that she was there one second and not the next.
Kind of looking at me. I spent the whole night thinking, "Am I going to see her again? Is she going to be in the backyard? Is she going to?"
Well, a lot of times people see the shrouded in white, and I think a large part of that is because we used to wrap bodies in burial clothes that were white. Like burial gowns were white.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that might be why a lot of times people see ghosts and it looks like they're wearing white gowns or dresses or whatever. Maybe it was just burial shroud type stuff.
Maybe. But I never really thought what I saw was a ghost. I just thought it was it was weird. It was inexplainable.
Lady. Yeah.
But now knowing that Tony Pickman saw someone who looked just as real as you and me, and that lady looked just as real as you and me. I mean, I don't know.
I've heard so many stories. Like I think there's lots where I remember recently, I don't remember where I was listening to it, but that there's a guy it wasn't Kel's pub that we talked about last week, but a similar situation where there's a regular haunting where this guy comes, he sits at the bar, he orders a beer, the bartenders give him his beer, he drinks the beer, just sort of hangs out, and then he is all of a sudden he's just gone, and they go to grab his glass and it's still full of beer.
What? It's not somebody who just hasn't paid his bill and runs out.
It's the same guy in the same seat, orders the same beer, and then disappears, and the beer is still full, even though they watched him drink it.
Whoa.
And he just looks as real as you and I.
They need to, put up some cameras or something.
Oh, maybe they have. I don't remember what the reference is.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I like that story. Okay. So that happened to him on October of 1993. And then things just keep ramping up, Lynn. So, I mean, the couple put their baby in a nursery. They have this story where they put the kid in there, they go back to check on him, and within a matter of seconds, just like my story where it was just a couple seconds later that I had my eyes off the window, they had their eyes out of the room for just a little bit, and then they went back, and all of the kids' stuffed animals were arranged in a circle in the room. They'd all been moved, and they'd all been arranged. And they have a baby. It wasn't a baby.
Stuffy seance? That's creepy.
It is creepy.
Ooh.
That one they really can't explain. And when they go through interviews and stuff, they were like, "Well, we felt like someone was playing a prank on us. People knew we were going through weird things." And how could they run it?
Who's getting in and out that fast and doing that? You would hear people. You would hear movement. You would hear, and also that it's just too fast.
Right.
It's not enough time.
Right. And that night, Tony felt an intense burning on his back, and they found 3 deep scratches running down his spine. And they got photos of this.
I don't think this is Sallie. I think somebody else invited something else in at some point.
Yeah, it's possible.
I think Sallie's probably trying to hold down the fort.
Down.
Yeah. But she's just a kid. Come on, Sallie, you can do it.
I think your theories line up with, like, if you go on Reddit, people have a million theories, and what you're saying sounds like what other people think, that there's something else there.
There's something else got brought in with all the people interested in Sallie.
Well, the attacks on Tony specifically continued. So Tony's living there, and he's dealing with scratches, bruises, burn marks in the shape of fingerprints.
Eesh.
He's getting pushed around. He's getting knocked down. And there's these fires that keep happening, which is so scary. They were at their kid's birthday party, and a doll just caught on fire for no reason.
That's awful.
It's horrible.
Can you at that party?
No.
All right, kids, get your shoes. Time to go. But they haven't even had the cake. Doesn't matter. That doll just busted into flames, Johnny. We out. They can have next year's at Chuck E. Cheese.
They'll be like, this is your birthday song. It isn't very long.
Hey!
Okay.
Wow.
Well, it was at that point that they called for help.
That's a good point. That's a great opportunity to call for help.
And we've talked about this before. I don't know who you call.
Fire department for starters.
Fire department.
Even if it is just a doll, it's spontaneously combusted. I think it's fair to call the professionals.
They might have called the fire department. They're definitely calling psychics, religious officials.
Sure. After I call the fire department.
Yeah, film crews. So they were actually recorded in several, there were shows on at the time. Oh, and I should have written this down. I'm so sorry. But you know how there were shows like in the 90s, Unsolved Mysteries?
Sure. Oh, I'm sure
like
Unsolved Mysteries got a call.
Yeah, there's a show, and I'll find it and put the videos on. But there was a show that came in and filmed them and caught like the scratches and stuff on camera. Whoa. And they caught things. So, but I feel really bad for Tony, who at this point, now they're staying there so they can like catch stuff.
Tony's
and evidence. Like, Tony's getting beat up, right?
He's bait at this point.
Yeah. They caught him being like, this is on camera. They caught him being knocked backwards and being like pinned down, like a force is restraining him. It's possible that this family was making this up for attention or for money, right?
That has happened.
I think it's very possible, but that doesn't explain that all these other people have had experiences in the house and continue to this day.
Wasn't he the non-believer to begin with?
He was the non-believer to begin with.
So it's weird that he would be the one that would want to pretend or play act for money. That's a weird...
Right.
That's a weird leap. That's a big leap.
Right.
Because if you don't believe in it to begin with, you wouldn't... I don't think you would say, well... I mean, maybe you could say, well, there's enough people who do. I bet I can make a buck if I just pretend. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not that... maniacal, but
I've never considered anything like that for attention or for money.
And I have needed some money sometimes in my life,
right?
But it never even occurred to me. I got a great idea.
It never would occur to me. Also, like, they've got a new baby. You'd be so busy with the new baby.
You are too tired to come up with a ruse. Nobody has time for a ruse when you got a newborn.
But then you could also argue, if you've got a newborn and your husband's getting beat up, why wouldn't you just leave?
Where do you go?
Again, I guess that is kind of weird to say, because
where would we go? Like, I think about that. Where would we go?
I'd go to your house.
We'd be at each other's houses, and we have that privilege.
Yeah.
But not everybody does. If you don't have family or friends close, or you don't have the funds to go stay at a hotel.
Right. You can't just like leave your job.
Everything you have is there. That's your home.
Yeah. I shouldn't be so flippant about like, I would just
leave.
I
think everybody does. Similar with like any type of abusive situation, abusive relationship. It's easy for outsiders to be like, why didn't they leave? They should have left so long ago.
True.
You know? But way easier said than done if you don't have the means or the resources or the support to do it.
And maybe you could, continue to argue. So you start out, lights flickering isn't so bad. Cold spots aren't so bad. Maybe that continues. You go like, well, scratches aren't so bad.
It becomes the next... If it's done in like a grooming kind of way, almost like the spirits are grooming you,
that's
then
creepy
you get used to it. You just constantly have a new base level, a new that's not that bad if it's so gradual. Just like abuse, right?
Right. Oh, it's sad to think about. One day, Tony was laying on his couch, and he felt something bite him on the back of his thigh. Back of his thigh. The bite didn't break the skin, but it did leave teeth marks, and their baby didn't have teeth at the time. And he couldn't do it himself because you'd have to be a contortionist, right?
And even for contortionists, that's a tough one.
Yeah. Although I'd like to see that. I'd like to go to Cirque du Soleil and watch someone like try to bite their own thigh in the back of their thigh.
I can't even think of somebody I've seen. I have seen some like that can get close, and maybe, you know what? Yeah, I bet there are some. You know where you do like the back bend, but you keep going, and so then your chest is on the floor, and you're basically like making a loop.
A circle.
Your chest is in the same area as your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Then I bet you could.
Probably. But how many people
by
can
you,
do that?
I don't mean you or me. I mean like a general, really flexible person.
Right.
Maybe. There was never a time where I could do that.
I don't think Tony Pickman could do it.
No. So. Probably not.
Well, they lasted 2 years. They lasted 2 years with the activity ramping up all the way through, and with them having a lot of media attention towards the end. And eventually they were like, we're done. We have to move. I think it's fair. Mm-hmm. Maybe it took them that long to get their resources together and kind of out. But they continued, and they continue to this day to do interviews on, like, you can they're kind of, I've heard them on like more recent podcasts within the last few years. She's written a book, at least one, which then I lean toward, okay, well, they're trying to profit off of this, or they're continuing to tell their story. Are they doing it for some reason because they want people to know their story, or are they continuing to do it because they need the money?
Maybe it's both.
It could be both. I don't know that we should judge that.
No. I would probably write a book. One, I really like writing. Mm-hmm. And two, I think it's cathartic to tell your story.
Right.
And also, as long as it's true and you're telling the truth, if you're saying this truly happened, this is nonfiction, then it needs to be true. And then I have no problem with you making a buck off of it.
Right.
I mean, people make money off documentaries.
Yeah. I think I'd want to tell my story, but I'd be afraid of the repercussions of being called crazy. Like, how would it affect my job?
Sure. But at that point, I mean, enough has happened that everybody clearly knows about it.
True.
And you're going to have people who don't believe you no matter what our truths are in life. There are people who are going to poo-poo it, downplay it, negate it, gaslight it.
True.
So you might as well live your truth and get to a point where it doesn't matter to you what other people think. You know what's true. It's between you and the walls and the universe, nobody else.
Maybe that's just what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know what's really sad is I was listening just this morning to an interview, more recent interview from Debbie, and she was reflecting on how long she let that abuse go on for her husband and how bad she felt about that. Yeah. And that kind of hit home for me. I was like, well, watching someone that you love, that's your family member, getting hurt and abused. And she was like, well, we just let it go on because we wanted to get evidence. We were trying to figure out what was going on.
Well, it doesn't sound like he was begging to leave either. I mean, maybe he felt some sort of macho responsibility that he had to stay. Maybe she felt some pressure from her, but also, like, he's a grown adult, and it doesn't sound like he was putting his foot down and saying, enough, let's get out of here.
Right.
We don't know, again, between them and the walls. Mm-hmm. But but the abuse part, that she uses that term too, I had never thought about it. Like, if there is such a thing as like spiritual demonic abuse like that, it makes sense that it would work like any abusive relationship, where it's going to start small and gradually you just get acclimated to it, or what's the word, desensitized. And then it gets a little heavier, and then you get desensitized to that and it gets a little heavier. So as a family, they may have been getting sort of abused in that sense of like grooming toward more and more severe things.
Right.
But they all survive it. They all left. I'm
sure
did. They've all gotten therapy.
I hope so. Sounds traumatic.
Very. Very traumatic. Because there's no explanation for it.
No. And I forgot to tell you, you were talking in the beginning about how you would like try and talk to the ghost. You were in that house in Friday Harbor, and you were talking to That's what Debbie did in the beginning. Debbie would like go talk to it. She thought it was Sallie. She thought it was a little girl. She was like, we're going to welcome you into our family. You can be part of our family. She would talk to it all the time. And Tony Pickman would be like, what are you doing talking to this like what are you doing? But that's how it started. It started with her trying to kind of make peace
Well,
with it.
and that might have been a mistake. I mean, I would have done the same thing. But if there was, and she didn't know that there's potential demonic possession of the house, or negative entity of some kind. But again, the trickster thing of posing as a child. So then she has made it loud and clear. She believes she's attributed this activity to a little girl named Sallie. So that little girl that he saw, that Patrick that he saw in the kitchen.
What was his name? Tony.
Tony. That little girl might not have been a little girl. It might have been, it could have been a demon posing and looking all sweet and innocent to get their guard down again.
Yeah.
Because it was shortly thereafter that the physical stuff started happening, right?
Yep, right. And that's one of the theories for sure, that it's this trickster thing.
Mm-hmm. And Sally's just a scapegoat.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Sally. That's not how you want to be remembered.
No. And it's interesting to me that it specifically seems to target men. And this includes, like, you know, paranormal investigators who come today, who continue to come. It's more, they have more of the experiences.
I bet Zach Bagans has been.
Oh, he's been there. He's got a whole episode on it where they say they've got evidence, but he's like screaming. Yeah, he's so aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too much.
So that's pretty much the Pickman story. That another person moved in afterwards, a woman, but it was a woman. Okay. She had experiences, and she talks about them, but they weren't as violent or scary as what Tony Pickman experienced. And then after her, the house has been vacant, and it's been a place for like tourists to come.
Has it somebody must own it?
Someone does own it. They've owned it for like the last 10 years,
but they don't live in it.
No. Would you?
Probably not, but I'd be curious.
Yeah.
But somebody's got money to burn, because they can just have this house, and then I guess maybe the tourism pays for it.
I think the tourism probably pays for it.
But somebody had to have enough money to buy it and not live in it.
Yeah.
And get it going as a tourist destination.
If we had a lot of money, we could do something like that. But, you know, I wouldn't just leave the house. I'd let tourists come and film their own stuff, but I would set up the house with cameras of my own 24/7.
If I had that,
to document something.
For sure. Although I think a lot of times it's triggered by human interaction.
Oh, and the energy.
Mm-hmm. If I had all that money, you and I would start an escape room business or something.
Oh, I love escape rooms. What about a haunted escape room? An escape room in a haunted house.
You wouldn't even go to your own escape room.
I don't go to the haunted houses at all. I know. Ridiculous.
Same. I don't like them. Isn't that weird?
Have I told you why I don't go?
No.
Because I truly have this fear that someone's going to stab me or something in a haunted house.
Think it's part of the act.
And everyone will think it's part of the act, and everyone will be like giggling and.
That's got to have happened in one of the what are those movies? Final Destination. Something like that has to have happened in one of those movies.
It happened in one of the Scream movies.
Oh, really?
Where a woman gets stabbed, and I think it's like Will Smith's wife or something, and she's playing a character, and Jada Pinkett Smith. She gets stabbed and goes up in front of the movie, and she's like, bleeding to death. Help me! And everyone's like, what a cool part of the act! What a part!
Yeah,
that's
exactly what would happen.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me think of several tragic events that people just thought was entertainment. I'm kind of the same way. That's funny for different reasons. I don't love a jump scare.
No.
I also don't trust people who get off on scaring people. So people who dress as clowns,
right,
or the chainsaw murderer or whatever. Like, if that's your jam, there's something wrong with you.
Right. I used to be a clown. We've talked about that. I used to be a clown.
Yeah, but you weren't a scary clown.
No.
You were cute.
But I get what you're saying, because I would get a thrill from making kids laugh, or giving people a good time. Or I did improv comedy, making people laugh. I can't. You're right. There's something kind of sick and twisted about enjoying fear.
Yeah. No. But I would love to own and operate escape rooms. I got invited to do another escape room over break. We couldn't go because we had a conflict, but it was at the only one I haven't done in this area, which is the Escape Hour in Gig Harbor. Their what is it called? Like Cabin in the Woods.
No, that's the scary one where they have live actors. You've done all the other escape rooms.
I would have done it if I'd been free, and I would have been scared out of my wits. But I've done all the other Escape Hour ones.
I want to find an escape room for your birthday or for Christmas or something, or for my birthday.
For your birthday.
But it needs to be one you haven't done, so we might have to go all the way up to Seattle or something.
A different company. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm down for that. I'm always down for an escape room. We got an escape room game from my staff holiday party white elephant gift exchange. And I brought it to Friday Harbor, but my stepmom and my dad and my daughter hung in there. God bless them. It was hard. We never finished it.
No, you never finished.
There were four envelopes, like 4 sections of it. We got through 2.5. The first one took us like 110 minutes.
Whoa.
Yeah, you had
really
90 minutes for the whole thing, and we were still on the first one after 110 minutes.
Oh no.
Then we got through the second one super fast in less than 10 minutes, and then the third one, we had started the third one and it got pretty late, and we were like, I said, okay, let's call it. It's okay, guys, we can quit. But they were all doing it for me, and they said they had fun. At least my stepmom said she had fun. So shout out to Mambo.
It's not for everybody.
It's not. It's lateral thinking.
Us. Yeah.
It is. You have to, and it takes practice. I didn't like them at first.
Right.
I didn't like lateral thinking puzzles at first, but I just knew like this is a way to increase my intelligence. This is a way to have fun in a different way. So I started reading lateral thinking puzzle books when I was in college.
Oh, fun.
And that it was a cool conversation starter, like to bring to a gathering of people that I hadn't met before. And then people will be like, well, what's that? And then you read them out loud. They're real short, and you get people talking and thinking, and it's a great icebreaker. So that's how that started for me. And then it became, this escape room thing became a phenomenon. And I've always loved a theme party.
Right.
So it's sort of like a themed party with lateral thinking. Like, it's the perfect mix for me. I love it.
I love them, but I think that's because I feel like I'm fairly good at them. My husband hates them. My husband hates them because he's extremely smart, but he doesn't think the way that escape rooms get you thinking about, like, there'll be codes, for example, like symbols will recognize the letters. Yeah, he can't. He's like, I don't understand, and I'll be in the room with him, you know, with the like pressure because the time's on your back. So maybe I'm a little too intense, but I'll be there like explaining, like, okay, this symbol means this word, and this symbol means this word, and you put them together to like spell a sentence, and he can't. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
My husband doesn't like them either. I think most of the issues, it takes getting used to. Like, you can't be afraid to share a bad idea. So whatever you observe, it could be a clue. So you just name it and claim it. Well, I see this hanging on the wall. Just so you know, it's right here above this.
Right.
If everybody does that, then you start building on each other's thinking. But if you're too afraid, if you feel like you have to solve it all by yourself, well, you're never going to solve it.
No.
And 2, you can't be afraid of being wrong. You have to just observe things and make observations out loud, and then somebody else is going to make another observation and put them together, and suddenly you've got a clue that works.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to just kind of go balls to the wall with crazy outlandish ideas and observations, and hear what they say so you can build on their thinking and vice versa. It takes practice.
Yeah. I love it, though.
Me too.
We went on a tangent. I have a little more on Sallie House if you want.
But if anybody out there has a great escape room in the local area,
call us.
Yes, or email us, paranormalclassroom@gmail.com. Get on our socials, the Paranormal Classroom, on Instagram and Facebook. We'd love to get some tips on really good ones that you've done, because they're all kind of expensive. And I don't want to throw away money on a garbage one.
No.
Or also ghost tours. If you've done a really great haunted history ghost tour in Washington, let us know that too, because there's a lot of them and not all of them are good. Okay, back to the show. And we
don't want to waste our time. Right.
Nice.
Back to the show. Okay, so no one lives in the Sallie House anymore, but they continue to rent it out for investigations, and you have lots of options. You could pay to stay overnight there. You could pay to just pop in for the evening with a group. And all these people, this is since 1994, right? Mm-hmm. We've got video cameras. We've got all people have been going and collecting evidence. There's a huge amount of just weird things on the internet now that you can find.
Whoa.
Video stories. Well, there's this one group that, and I'll post this link, but it's a group of like college age kids, and they were there for a long time, and most of the time it seems like when you're ghost hunting, nothing happens. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of sitting around. Mm-hmm. So there you can see them sitting around in the living room, and behind them the blinds close, and they're like those slat blinds where you'd have to
the vertical, horizontal blinds.
Yeah, and they don't even notice it. The blinds just close behind them, but it's caught on camera. And then at some point shortly after, someone's like, "Weren't these blinds open?" Like they had just. It's weird. I guess someone could pull a string, but there's lots of things like that where people are just having. Oh, and like the craziest story to me, there's these podcasters that I'm crazy about. They're like us, but better. They're way better, Lindsay.
We'll get there.
Well, these guys, they're called Astonishing Legends.
Oh, yeah, I've listened to them.
I love them. But they go on deep dives. They did a series on the Sallie House that's 4 episodes, and each episode is 3 hours.
What?
Yeah. But within
That's a PhD in the Sallie House.
It is. They're incredible. But within that, they're interviewing Tony and Debbie Pickman.
Oh, wow.
They're interviewing other people who've been to the house and sharing their stories. And then at the end, they go themselves.
That's awesome.
And they buy this like really popular voice recorder device for catching EVPs.
Okay.
And they catch the craziest, creepiest EVPs that I have ever heard.
What?
Yeah. One of the guys, he leaves the voice recorder on in one of the rooms. It's like the nursery or something. And they leave. And then no one's up there. No one's nearby. No one's making any noise. But when they go back and check the voice recorder, they've got like what sounds like a screaming, talking, really creepy. I mean, something had to make that sound on that recorder.
Mm-hmm. And they're usually sound activated. So they don't even record until there's a sound to be recorded. Oh. That's how you don't have to review hours and hours and hours of tape. It only records if there's something
interesting.
Like a game trail camera will only take pictures if it catches movement.
Interesting. Well, they took the recorder to like professional people who are professional in the audio industry, the sound industry, because they were like, is this interference from a ham radio? Is this interference from like walkie-talkies? Like, what could be causing this? And all the professionals they brought it to were like, this is not interference. We have no explanation for this. It's not a faulty device.
That's cool.
Yeah, so they go on this whole journey, and what's cool is at the beginning of the journey, these two guys, they're kind of skeptical like we are.
Yeah.
They love learning about it, but they don't believe in all of it.
Right.
But the one guy who had the recorder, he like says at the beginning of the 4th series, he's like, this experience recording these for you guys has changed my belief system, changed my lens.
Yeah, I think that happens to people a lot. It only takes one real paranormal experience. It's sort of like I have felt a lot with a lot of people. They don't believe because they haven't experienced it yet.
Right.
But you can't, as soon as you experience it, something that you cannot explain in any way, shape, or form, then you're forced to just kind of go, well, let me adjust my paradigm here.
I know, but then on the other side, like I've had weird things happen, and I still am very skeptical.
And I think that's healthy.
Yeah.
But you're open. You're not like, there's skeptical is healthy. Cynical is not. So people who totally negate, downplay, poo-poo anything outside of what current science can explain, and they're to the point of even maybe mocking people who do believe or do have personal experiences with the paranormal, that's not healthy. But I think being a healthy skeptic is exactly what people should be.
Right.
That's critical thinking.
Yeah, well, I like to think it's like a scientific brain, right? I'm like, okay, we don't have an explanation for this. How do we learn more about it? How do we study it? How do we recreate the parameters that cause this to happen?
Yeah. Wow. So Sallie House, you can go there. It's in Kansas. You have to go to Kansas though to go to the Sallie House. But you could catch a little aviation history with the Amelia Earhart Museum, and then pop on over to Sallie House.
Right. Sounds
awesome. That is not a road trip I want to do anytime soon.
No.
That is far. But
I wonder if we someday like have money to travel and do random things.
That'd be a good one.
If you'd put it on your list.
Absolutely.
You think so?
Oh, sure.
I don't know if you're like guaranteed to catch something.
No one can guarantee you that.
But I think enough people have the overall collection of all these people who've gone to check it out over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Or is it 30 years now? 1994, 30 over the last 30 years. There's quite a collection out there.
Yeah. And I just think to have your own personal experience of just going there, whether or not you actually capture something or not, is still fun. I love going to places that are supposedly haunted, even if I don't catch anything. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. It's a fun way to explore history.
Right.
Is through that lens of it might be haunted. Is you're just more likely to remember it. I think it's a fun way to teach history, learn about history.
This is just for us. We don't talk to anybody about it. That's why it's so fun doing this podcast, because you finally get to get some of your thoughts out.
Yeah, like our kooky wonderings.
Yeah, but I really don't talk to anybody about kookiness.
I do.
Other than you.
I do, because I don't care what other people think. I'll say anything. And then they can think I'm a weirdo. They already do. Might as well let the freak flag fly. But that's it. I think that's... So, yeah, we already mentioned our socials, and please get in touch with us.
Do you have another voicemail from your friend?
I do have another voicemail from my buddy, Chicago Mark. This is a voicemail he left after listening to our episode on Amy Carlson and the Love Wins or Galactic Federation of Light cult. Check it out.
Hey, good morning. Just finished the latest episode, and I just wanted to pass on to you guys this week's episode. I feel like a better person having had listened to it. Such great wisdom. I hardly even remember the story, but it was so heartfelt that what you guys were saying about them and her and just caring for the person involved in. Oh, thank you so much. Anyway, love you guys. Bye.
That's the Sallie House.
Creepy.
Class dismissed.
And don't open the door again to the basement. If it has a dirt floor, especially, that's not a basement. It's a crawl space root cellar. Get out of there.